and the most amazing human planet on the planet. Do you like that introduction? Was that a great introduction?
Wow.
Did you? Most amazing human on the planet was the first thing that popped out of my mouth. That's what you
There's going to be a
get.
lot of disappointed people here today.
So we have Gene Petrino, and I would love to introduce Gene. So he is an expert in survival response, and we're going to talk into that today. And Gene came to me, I don't know, a couple months ago to help with a presentation that he's been developing so that he can approach more folks in the healthcare industry. And so we'll talk about that as well. Gene, so why don't you go ahead, and since I've just set up the stage that you're the most brilliant human on the planet, why don't you do an introduction for yourself and tell our viewers right now a little bit about you?
I have no idea how to do that at this point.
I know when I set the bar so high, it's like,
How
where
am
do
I
you
gonna-
go
how am I
from
gonna do it?
there?
All right. So, all right. My name is Gene Petrino. I'm the co-founder of Survival Response, and we teach people how to survive unthinkable situations. Primarily, our focus right now is the epidemic that's happening in healthcare with workplace violence, and we've developed a program specific to them to help try to alleviate some of the problems there. Especially since 75% of all workplace violence incidents occur in healthcare. So.
Yeah, thank you for that, Gene. Can you do me a favor and our viewers a favor as well, which is, can you define what workplace violence is? Because I know it's quite the spectrum.
Yeah, so workplace violence I mean, it covers everything. It really is, and I use the word spectrum. It's one of the ones that I use for the definition, which is a spectrum of behaviors that could lead to violence in a workplace. And there's tons of different definitions of it, but essentially, it falls into four main categories. One is criminal intent, so think of like a robbery. The second one would be a employee or a client relationship or customer relationship, and I always use the example of think of when you're calling tech support and you want to kill the person on the other line because bad customer service. So there's that one. Then you have worker on worker, which is really where most of it occurs, where you're just not getting along, and that's where things like bullying and sexual harassment and even physical violence occur. And then the final one is personal relationships, which is essentially when domestic violence spills into the workplace.
Terrific. Thank you for that definition. It's really helpful for us. I'm also curious, what got you into this work? Because you have quite the extensive background. So if you don't mind just sharing a little bit of that background, and then what led you to starting your own business?
Well, it was a long story, but make it short. So I was in law
Mhm.
enforcement for 26 years. And during that time had a lot of different opportunities in different positions, and one of those was as the SWAT commander, and part of our work that we had to do was we had to teach active shooter preparation and response for businesses and schools and churches and things like that. um, as the demand grew, we were not able to keep up with it.
Mhm.
So as an agency, and in fact most law enforcement have kind of started pulling away from that a little bit because it's too much of a task. They can't handle it on top of their other duties. So we ended up really kind of like limiting what we were doing, and felt kind of bad about that because I felt there was information that we could share to help people.
Mhm.
So I approached my chief with my partner, and who was also is still a team member on the SWAT team, as a team leader. And we asked if we could create our own business, and the chief was all for it. So that's how we started back in 2018, I believe,
Okay.
and that's kind of where we grew from it. It was just something that over time, we've had experience with it. We've taught thousands of people, and yeah.
Now, there's a story that you share that I would love for you, if you don't mind sharing with us right now, because I feel like it's also pivotal in where your heart is, if you will, with this business. And that's, can you share that story about how you really brought a community together and cleaned up a neighborhood because you got passionate about making the connections with the other humans, which has also helped you kind of see where these systems within healthcare and also within, I would imagine, and we've talked about this a little bit in the past, that the police force, like, they're both service oriented industries. um how you feel, what you learned from bringing that community together, and what you can apply towards bringing these service oriented industries together. So can you tell us that story a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably about my 10th year in law enforcement. I was sort of at a very down point in my career, and I think it's sort of normal in law enforcement. Probably a lot of careers where you have your ups and downs, but primarily in law enforcement, you feel kind of beat down after a while, and so my
Mhm.
attitude was not the greatest. I would just show up just to handle my calls, and that was it. And one day it was my boring shift. I was miserable, didn't want to work, and it was of course raining. And there's always a rule: don't get wet, and don't go home without eating dinner. So that was always our rules. But of course, the call goes out. Some kid that's crying on the side of the road, and I remember thinking, yeah, great, I get some kid crying. What's this about? And I
Mm.
get there, and I see this kid. He was probably maybe 11 years old, and he literally is crying in the rain. And I'm like, what is he doing? And as I approached him, I realized that he was a special needs student, and it just something woke me up a little bit. Got him out of the rain. We started talking, and it turns out that his somebody stole his umbrella from him, which I would say infuriated is probably not a strong enough word, but I was very angry that someone could victimize this poor kid who was just going to school. But what made it worse was this was his favorite umbrella. It was
Hmm.
the soccer ball canopy and a little soccer ball handle. I mean, the kid explained it, and his dad shows up, and his dad almost broke down when he found out this kid's umbrella, which was like his prized possession, got stolen. Um, and something just snapped in me, and I realized that my attitude is really impacting the performance that I have, and all the ideals of being able to give back to the community when I started were gone, but they were still in me, and something about this incident woke me up, and it really was pivotal for my career. I swore to the kid I'd get his umbrella back, and I'd find the guy that did it, and I was able to do it, which is usually not a very easy thing to do. And something like that. But I ended up finding his umbrella, got it back to him, arrested the kid that did it, and who was a very bad kid. Um, Anyways, so eventually, I just something happened. I realized that I used to love the job. Why did I not like it anymore? And I started connecting with the community every day. I was like, "That's it. I'm going to get back to why I like this job. I'm not going to worry about why there's no money for equipment, or why we have short staffing, or all the other things that we tend to complain about." We always had high turnover, and just everyone seemed miserable. And I thought that doesn't have to be me. So that changed for me, and started connecting with the community. I started making sure that when I drove around every street, I talked to everybody that I could. And before I knew it, everyone started giving me information about all the problems that they were having in the area, people selling drugs, where people were dropping stolen cars off. And I just went on this, for lack of a better word, a rampage and zero tolerance for crime. And within about 6 months to a year, crime had definitely decreased in that area. And I just, in the beginning, everyone thought I was crazy. All my coworkers, my bosses thought I was insane, and they were kind of actually a little mad at me at first because they saw the work that I was creating for them, as they saw it. But eventually it caught on, and everyone started getting behind me on this. My zone partners were helping me. People were giving me information. The training unit was sending me new officers to help teach them how to be a street cop. And it really was fascinating to me to see that my attitude changed everything, not just for me, but for people around me, including the public. Um, and to this day, that area, which was used to be a pretty high crime area, is still pretty good now. So it had a long lasting impact, and I think that when we look at areas like healthcare, right now they're beaten down. They're short staffed, high turnovers. There's no money. There's unfair compensation because you have nurses that are working their regular shift, and then you've got traveling nurses making 3 times what they're making next to them. So there's morale issues. They're still recovering from all the stuff that hit them from COVID, and it's just, to me, there's a connection there's we're both service based industries. I've been through what they've gone through, so I try to get the message out there that there's hope, that your attitude alone can start to change how things happen for you. What they're going through now is temporary, and it will turn around at some point, but they can actually accelerate that by having a better attitude, and starting to get back in touch with what they first got into their line of work for. They get into help people. Was it interesting to them? Problem solving, whatever it is, they can reach out and find their why again, and make all the difference.
I love this, Gene. I'm curious if you can help us out a little bit here because it's to change attitude, to change a behavior takes time. We all know that, right? And to be able to pivot in that way for the betterment of the whole is can be quite challenging. So I'm curious if there's one little baby step that you can offer to us about how to go about doing that. What was the if you can think back to that story about the young boy with the umbrella, what was that first step you took to start reaching out to the community and to change your own behavior?
Well, the experience of that alone was what really did change me, and for me, it was a
Mhm.
pretty rapid change. But there were still ups and downs that I had, and I think that as far as a baby step, you have to think back to why did you get into the career that you chose? What
Mm.
is your reason for it? Your why is what
Mhm.
really will guide you on where you want to be, and um, you have to understand that every job has its ups and downs. There's always going to be budget issues. There's always going to be equipment issues. There's going to always be people that don't appreciate what you do. You're not always going to have the support of your supervisor or administration, but that doesn't mean anything. And that's something that I realized that you have to be true to yourself. If you got into your line of work because you want to help people, which is why I got into law enforcement, you've got to think about that. You've got to realize that that's who I am. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, and no one is going to stop me. And that was that determination that I had. But I think the baby step is to really sit back and think about why do you do what you do? If you don't like it, then leave.
Mhm.
That was my opinion, and I had really been struggling with that, and I thought, why am I in this job? And it took me that moment um, for this one call for me to realize that I got into it because I wanted to help people exactly like this little boy. And I think that nurses and doctors and everybody in healthcare, they've had those patients where they're like, man, I made a difference today, and that's what it's about. So you have to reconnect with that. I think that's really the big thing, and it's hard. It definitely is hard to do, but it's something that if you determine that that's what you want to do and the reason you do it, it ends up not being as hard as you think it is. It's just that realization you got to come to.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that very much. I want to talk a little bit about how we came together and why we're here today on LinkedIn, which is we've worked one on one. You're one of my clients. It's been fantastic getting to know you and you sharing your stories with me has been I have learned a tremendous amount. And then also with that, we have this group coaching program that you participate in called Confidently Speaking, and
Mhm.
I do once a month, I try to find a different challenge or a new goal to give to the members of the Confidently Speaking community. And so this month, you'll be hearing from me. I'll be doing these LinkedIn Lives with individuals from that community because I feel it's not only important for me to highlight, like, look who's in the community, isn't that cool? But also, look what the people in this community are doing with their lives and getting their voices out there and building that confidence in these different platforms that we have. So I'm curious if you don't mind, Gene, just talk to me a little bit about what your experience has been with this Confidently Speaking community. I know you came in and you dove in head first with the improv stuff, and I'm just curious about if you have a couple of takeaways that you wouldn't mind sharing with our viewers about this experience so far.
Boy, yeah. No, listen, it has been nothing but fun. Honestly, it has been a lot of fun. You know, I did. When I decided to join it, my attitude was just go in and do it. Just jump in both feet first and just have fun with it. And I think that's really important. Stepping out of your comfort zone, that's where you grow. That's where you learn how to be better at anything that you do. And a lot of my career, I've truly had to improvise a lot of situations,
Mhm.
getting in and out of them, and it's something I haven't really been doing a lot lately. So this was kind of a fun thing to get involved with, and I think it definitely has improved my speaking with the way that you address the things that pop up, because there are times when you're going to give a presentation where someone's going to throw you off, something's
Mhm.
going to happen, and so it was really it's really been a great experience for me to learn how to roll with that, and I think that's one of the best things. But also the people, it's a great group of people. um, Learn from all different backgrounds, which is really good because you get to see different perspectives and see how people respond to different things, which you learn from. You learn from everybody. So I mean, I can't say enough. It's been a lot of fun and
Great.
educational.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And it's been really a joy to have you a part of the Confidently Speaking community as well. So thank you. And I'm going to turn it back on you again because I want our viewers to get a little bit more specific in terms of how you would work with people in healthcare. And you've talked often when we've been working together about behaviors. It's about noticing behaviors. So talk to us about where we've been in some of these solutions and where you can take us because of what you do with us through survival response.
Okay, so we have a pretty comprehensive program, and one of the components of it is training. And over the years, I've realized that just teaching active shooter, response and stuff is really not working. If it did, then we would have probably less incidents. So we really have to start looking about how do we prevent these things from happening, and that's probably the biggest focus that we have is on prevention. Situational awareness is critical to that, and you know I hear over and over, and I read in all these different case studies that I've done, of people involved in these incidents where they hear what they think are fireworks. Oh, I heard fireworks outside my office, so I looked outside and there's a guy with a gun. Think about it. Have you ever heard fireworks at work before? No. And what we've done is we've sort of gotten rid of that sense of problems that you start to note. Like you walk into a room and you know something's not right. Everyone's got that. It's in our limbic system. It's part of our midbrain. We realize that there's something wrong, but we've tuned that out. We've kind of dulled those senses. And part of what we do is help you realize that you can't ignore that. By ignoring that, you're putting yourself at huge risk. So we focus on teaching people how to listen to that, what indicators to look for, watching how people move in an area. Like I said, when you go somewhere, you sometimes get those little hairs in the back of your neck that stick up, and you're like, "This isn't right." You need to listen to that, and that's the biggest takeaway that we have from it. But a lot of our training, we cover specifically what kind of things are wrong and what to look for. Is the environment different? Is someone's behavior different? Is someone walking directly towards something? Are they staring? There's so many different things that go into this. But that's essentially what we really focus on is teaching people how to listen to their own bodies when something isn't right.
Terrific. I love that. I think it's so important. We get kind of trapped in this way of thinking we should be thinking and feeling versus really being in tune with ourselves. And I'm hearing this as a pattern, right? It's about taking personal responsibility and it's about self-awareness. So you're essentially inviting in individuals to be more self-aware about their own behaviors and their own attitudes towards their work and towards situations that might occur within the work environment. Uh, in hopes that if each individual has a really solid understanding of what their role is and the responsibility to the greater whole, then that's when we're going to be able to fix this kind of broken infrastructure, if you will.
Yes, absolutely right. Definitely.
Yeah, terrific work. It's terrific work. And so I want to thank you. Can you tell me please, I have it up here for people to see, but how can people find you? Where can people find you? And who are the people, the decision makers specifically that you're looking for to find you?
So we deal with all hospital administrators, CEOs, COOs, risk management, human resources reach out to us often, and those are the ones that we traditionally will deal with. But the truth is, if someone has a question about something, we would rather just help them figure out a problem. If they say, "Hey, Gene, we had a situation the other day. What could we have done better?" We're always open for free consultations and talk people through what they could have done better. Because to us, the message is more important than anything else. Trying to help people out. But you can reach me. Basically, easiest way is probably through the website, which is www.survivalresponsellc.com, and there's a contact link on the bottom of there. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on everywhere pretty much at Gene Petrino. That's GenePetrino, or you can also do at Survival Response.
Terrific. Thank you, Gene. And for those of you who want to know more about confidently speaking so that you can become a more confident and credible speaker, you can find us at members.confidentlyspeaking.fun, or you can also find me at Grundei Coaching at grundeicoaching.com. For one-on-one as well. I've got 2 programs, Own Your Voice and Own Your Story. And yeah, please join us for Confidently Speaking at any time. You can drop in any time. And the first class is complimentary, and you get to meet incredible human beings like Gene. What did I say at the beginning? You're
I,
the
you were
one of
making
the best people in the world.
you were really, really laying it on thick.
Thank you very much, Gene, for being here today. Again, you can find Gene at Survival Response LLC.com. And leave us a comment here on LinkedIn if you found value in this or if you want to continue this conversation. Thank you so much, Gene.
Thank you.